Hello there, and welcome to Talking to Introverts with me, Denise Oliver, and my co-introvert and presenter.
Hello, I'm Sami Blackford.
And we thought today we'd just have a chat about being on holiday as an introvert and what that's like for us. Because some of you will have had a holiday, some of you will have holidays coming up, and we wonder what it's like for you. We can only talk about what it's like for us. So, Sami, you recently went to Croatia. I've recently been to Crete.
hmm
You've had a weekend away with girly friends. I haven't done that this year yet. What have your holidays been like for you?
Um, well, first of all, so this month I've had 2 weekends away with different groups, and last month, as you say, I had a week in Croatia, and I was thinking like, oh, I've had all these holidays, and they're all with bloody people. Like, I just want a holiday on my own.
Oh, she's peopled out people. Too much peopling.
I know. It's like, when you're in these lovely places and you can just imagine yourself just kind of sitting there, like soaking it in, just doing things at your own pace. And so then there's somebody else like, what should we do today? I'm like, oh, no.
No more
Um,
doing. Stop it.
so I was,
What do you like to do then if you're on holiday and you're with someone else and your enjoyable other is very much on the extrovert side of life, isn't he?
he is. Um, so that when we were in Croatia, we were on one of the islands. We were on the island of Milet, and very nice. It's got the national park there, lovely coast, lakes, woodlands, all of that kind of stuff that, I was going to say this introvert's dream, being surrounded by that much natural landscape. Um, and, it's not a hugely busy island. It's not like a tourist mecca. Um, and on the way there, so when we got off the flight and we had the transport, the transfer, there was 9 of us on this transfer, all going to the same place. So on this island, there's only one hotel, so we were all going to the same place. Um, and we were chatting on in the coach and everything. Like I can do that. I can do that bit. It's like an hour. I can do that. Um, and then every now and again, like throughout the week, we'd kind of see them around the hotel or around the island, and you'd have a little chat. And like my partner would just be there, like he'd be having like full blown conversation, like it's time to go now. We need to go now. Like I'm done. I need. Um, but it was quite interesting. So it rained a lot of our holiday. So we had a few days just in the hotel room where we were like watching films and stuff. He had his iPad with him, and he actually really enjoyed that. I think he liked that because it was the first few days of the holiday. He needed that time to like decompress from like work stress and all of that kind of stuff. And then the second half of the holiday was quite sunny. So we were out, like by the it wasn't really a beach, but we had like the coastline. The hotel had its little cornered off bit. And there was the beach bar and there was the lounges and all of that kind of stuff. I'm there, like that's me. I'm set for the day. I've got myself a lounger, I've got my book, I'm good. And I'd just be there like sitting down, like watching everybody, and like next to me he's on this like on the edge of the seat, like sitting forward, like, and I could see like he needs to talk to people. Like he's done his like retreat of a couple of days where he's like, relaxed for a bit. It's like now he needs to talk. So there was some of the women who were on our transfer with us were like a little bit away from us. And he kept looking over. I was like, just go and talk to them. He's like, no. I was like, no, it's fine. I'm good. Like, you being here in this state is more annoying to me than you going off and talking. Like literally go, go.
I love it.
So we kind of came to this kind of like understanding where like we do like we'd go off in the mornings and do like a walk or whatever, or we hired bikes or, whatever we were doing. And then in the afternoon, we'd sit by the bar or by the beachy bit, and like I'd just kind of sit there and he'd go off and do his social butterfly stuff. So we both got what we needed in a sort of way.
I know. I mean, just to remind people that one of the ways that you can work out if you identify as an introvert is that in order to recharge your batteries, being alone is wonderful.
It really is.
You're not lonely. You're not sad. You just know that you've done enough peopling, and to actually have that alone time doesn't necessarily have to be like total silence. You're not sitting meditating, although you can do all of that as well. It's just that you just have to be on your own to recharge your batteries. An extrovert, or someone who is of a more extrovert tendency, on the other hand, they recharge by peopling,
Yeah.
by being out there, by chatting, by being surrounded by noise. That's their Valhalla. Ours is the opposite. Now, the older I've got, the more introverted I've become. It's always been there. Didn't understand it many years ago, but thanks to the book by Susan Cain, Quiet, I found a huge piece of who I am and what I like to do. So for me, on holiday, we went to Crete, the fourth time we're trying to get there, my word. Twice cancelled, postponed due to COVID. And then, of course, last year I fell and broke my shoulder 5 days before we were due to go. That wasn't happening. Far too much pain. And there's also concerns when you've just broken something, that if you do have to fly by air, that the pressure in the cabin can create clots in the blood and all sorts of side effects. So I wasn't leaving my bed. So that didn't happen. Anyway, we bumped it into this year. And it was one of those things that I could not talk about it to anyone. The curse of the Crete holiday might occur again. And
The holiday that shall not be named.
yes, that's what it is. God, blimey. About very Harry Potterish and Voldemort and all of that. Oh, no, no, no. The holiday shall not be named. And literally the week before, I stumbled and hurt my leg and thought I was never going to walk again. It was all very dramatic. It's like, no, it's right before Crete. And my husband's car got broken into, and his iPhone and iPad and all sorts of stuff just vanished. Oh my goodness. So there was all this going on. It's like, Crete. Are we ever going to get to Crete? And oh my word, am I glad we did. It's stunning. Absolutely loved it. We were right over on the eastern side, and we stayed in a small hotel. It literally comes under small hotels. Look up small hotels and you'll find Ilunda Gulf Villas. She says, yes, I think that's what it is. And we were staying in a place called Ilunda. Lovely place, lovely, just gorgeous, lovely coastline, busy. I like a busy fishing type little villagey, well, bigger than a village now, town. So lots to do, but also places to sit where you could just be quiet and have a drink, and just great like that. Anyway, I'll get to the point of why I'm telling you why we were in Crete. So that was our holiday from 3 years ago. So the fourth time of trying to get there, we got there. So great hotel, loved the place. We could go out walking, blah, blah, blah. One night, towards the end of the holiday, we were sat, and it was a big terrace by the pool, because this place isn't by the sea. Now, they very cleverly had bought a gorgeous modern villa with a big garden that went straight down to the coastline. So it has a beach, and again, in inverted commas, because it's not white sandy beach. Crete is rocky, hilly, and so the beach reflects that. Some beaches are very pebbly. There's a place called Plaka opposite an island called Spinalonga. Their beach is the most gorgeous white pebbles, huge white, beautiful pebbles. It's like, oh my God, look at those. Where did they come from? Where have they been put there? because it's a completely different colour to the rest of the island. So I don't know if it's man-made. Didn't find out. Loved it. But this, where the villa that belongs to Ilunda Golf Villas, was just there was this group of ladies showed up, and one of them just like walked down to the beach. She's like, walking on soil. This isn't sand. I mean, it's like very dirty sand, very grey. But there was little pebbles and shells, and there was, lots to do just there. And the gorgeous scene, which is like just swimming in a bath of lukewarm water, was just lovely. One night at the hotel, we sat on the terrace, big swimming pool at this place again, as I said, because it's not on a beach. And there was a guy at a table more towards the inside dining area. And I thought, oh, I've not seen him before as a guest. And it was unusual to see guests that were on their own. Mostly it was couples or families. Not many families, and the children tended to be a bit older as well. So it wasn't like a rowdy hotel. And I was just eating and eating. And one of the waiters, Dimitri, came up to us and said, oh, you need to go and talk to Nikos. You'll like what he's got. He's into olive oil. I'm like, right, okay, yeah, we can do that. When we finished eating, I said, do you want to go and speak to this guy? And Muslim's like, yeah, we can go and see what he's got. Come on. I thought, no, we definitely need to, because you haven't spoken much this evening. You'll need a conversation. So my husband likes to talk a lot. I'm very quiet, but he hadn't spoken much at all. So I thought, he's going to need a conversation. So we go over to meet Nikos, and he's got olives and olive oil and honey and the alcohol they drink there, raki, I think it's called. I've forgotten now. I don't drink alcohol, so that passed me by. And he's got a plain one, small bottles, and he's got a golden coloured one that's been infused with honey and herbs. Lovely stuff. So Pete and I are argy-bargying about what we're going to buy from him and how much we can put in our suitcases. Because, I go on holiday with the max of everything and bring half of it home clean. Of course I do, because I've always done that. So why change? And I'm like, well, I could leave a couple of books behind if you want to take olive oil and stuff like this. It's like, it's not going to work. And poor Nikos was there, really being helpful and, trying to come up with solutions to how we could buy his things. Of course, he's selling stuff, how we could put it in a suitcase to take it home, etc. And then I just suddenly got this, like, a sense of ask him a question. Like, what question? And in the morning, we'd gone on a walk. We'd walked down from the hotel down into Ilunda, and there was this like plaque on a wall that I took a photograph of. And I didn't understand what it was saying, but it was about olive oil and going to a farm to see how it was made. But I didn't understand the directions. It made no sense whatsoever. I looked at it several times on my phone on the photograph. I'm like, I don't know what this means. And that came into my head, and I just looked at him. I said, do you don't by any chance do tours of your olive trees and, where the olive oil is made? And he just looked at me like, yes. I went, oh, great. I said, can we do that then? And he's like, of course. Do you have a car? When are you free? Like, now. And we went the next day. He came and picked us up because we hadn't hired a car. He's like, no, I'll come and get you. And this is what I love about the Greeks. They will put themselves out for you. You show an interest in them, what they're doing. They are so generous. Obviously, there's going to be Greeks that aren't. But Greeks and generosity for me go together. It was the same when we went to the hotel we stayed in Lindos, the Lindos Blue. Honestly, they could not do enough for you. Yes, it's a 5-star hotel. Yes, you expect that. And yet there's something like intrinsic. You just get a sense of it, of them showing up as themselves. So he comes to pick us up. He talks, he just, points out sights as we're going along. We stop on the side of a road in this big parking area. And across the road, we're crossing a road. Okay, cool. I'm just just pootling along. We stopped by a restaurant called the Paradise Restaurant. And it's only after I've come home, I've gone, oh God, that really was paradise. Amazing. We set off down a country road, and the ground is like grey. The stone is whitey grey in the ground. It's dry as anything. How these olive trees grow, I've no idea, because the soil that they're in is like above what looks a lot like hardcore, like weird stuff we like lay down under drives and foundations. It's like, how are they growing on rock? And there they are, and have been for thousands of years. We start off down this country road, and Nikos doesn't just talk about olives and olive trees. He's pointing out the wild herbs that are growing, the wild flowers that are growing. Look over there, we've got the bees in their hives. And it's like, where are the people? And it was just that whole thing of, we're the only ones here. Shh, don't say anything. Oh my God, it was bliss. So Pete would, Nikos love, God bless him and love him for it. He would listen to anything Pete had to say. Pete could talk, blah, 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 blah. Off they'd go. And I'd always lag behind. So I just could really take in the whole hush of the area. You could hear a car in the distance. And further in the distance was a village called Kritza. And there it was, white and shining in this bit of a valley between the hills. And these olive trees, and they're so individual. You're like, we can see trees and go, oh yeah, I recognize that because that's Leylandia, and they all look the same. Olive trees have a personality of their own. They're all different. Their trunks look different. The people who own the trees prune them all differently, depending on what they want to get out of them. Because it's hillside, they grow randomly. It's not like there's no flat land to grow them in lines so that they're easier to harvest the olives. And it was just like, oh my God, I just love the individuality of them. And I'd be there looking at them and talking to them and taking photographs of them. There'd be a voice, Denise, Denise, Denise. Usually 3 times he had to call me back to go and listen to what he was saying. And I'm like, yes, where is that voice coming from? I was in my element, but it's only after I left I thought, oh my God, that is such a good place to take introverts. It's just such a good place. Small group, like one-to-one tuition on what was going on. The same when we went to the olive oil factory, learning out how once the olives were picked, how they picked them, la la la. These are Cretan olives and they're tiny. They're like baked bean size, tiny, tiny things. Beautiful flavour, really lovely flavour on them. Go to the factory where they're made. Again, just this one guy, Yanis, showing Pete and I around. This is what Nikos tours are based on. It's very small groups so that he can really give individual attention. And then we go to the Paradise restaurant and eat food, and we do olive oil tasting, which that was a feat in itself, learning how to do that. And I didn't do it very well. I just couldn't get the hang of this swirling olive oil around your mouth, but then you have to draw air in to, well, I don't know what you're doing really, bring oxygen to the flavour, because you're looking for 3 flavours with olive oil. I got there, but there's a photograph of Pete and I having a go at this. I look like I'm about to burst into tears. My eyes are all watered. And I'm trying not to let this oil spill out of my mouth onto my clothes, because I didn't know how to keep it in there and draw air over it at the same time. God, it was hilarious. I absolutely loved it. But I got there. 3 flavours for olive oil: fruity, bitter, and a peppery, spicy after flavour. And if you don't taste any of that on your olive oil, then it's probably quite old, or it's been through quite a few pressings. So this is extra virgin olive oil we're talking about. So we did all of that. Beautiful food prepared in front of us, put in front of us. So much to eat. Oh my goodness, I just couldn't finish it all off. It was just a fabulous, fabulous day. And because you sat just the 2 of us and him, and then the owner of the restaurants would come up. Their children came to say hello to us. Pete got taken into the owner's vegetable garden to go pick the cucumbers that he was going to put in the tzatziki. You feel like you're part of a family, and it's just like so inviting that I just feel like I could pick the phone up and talk to any of them, and I don't know them. have no idea anything about them. But that's the wonderful Greek hospitality. And because it's done in such small groups, you're not left on the outside, you are included. And I could find time for myself in the whole of this to wander this olive grove, not far because I didn't want to get lost, but to just stand and be in the hush, the quiet, the gentleness and the calmness of it all. If you're an introvert, you're on Crete and you fancy doing something like that, I strongly recommend you look up Nikos, whose surname I can't pronounce. I'm not even going to attempt it. I'm not even pronouncing his first name properly, but it's Crete Olives. And you can find him on Facebook and Instagram with all the information. And could always put that in the details as well, couldn't we, at the end of this recording? But yeah, it was very lovely. And there were times on holiday when people go, I fancy doing this. Okay, you do you. I'll just stay here because I just so need to be on my own so much just to recharge. And the other thing about going on the olive tour was tour, excursion, experience, not quite sure, adventure, I'll call it that, was that when we got back to the hotel and we said what we'd done, every single person who was part of that team had olive trees. That was their thing. And it's like when the tourist season finishes, what do? They go and look after their olive trees. This is what they do. They go and do the pruning. They go and gather the olives. They take the olives to this factory we went to, works as a collective. And they then are gifted from the olives and everything that goes on, olive oil for their family that lasts them a whole year. They never have to buy olive oil. And honestly, you could not get a better quality. I personally don't think. I'm suddenly such an expert with olive oil, than you can with the Cretan olive oil. Very different. One thing I learned that I didn't know, and the taxi driver that was taking us to the airport when we told him, Nikos said this as well, but I had never known it until this holiday, was that a lot of the residue from the first pressing is taken to Italy, where it's pressed again, and it's blended with Italian olives for the flavour.
Oh.
So if you pick up an olive oil, and it says Italian olive oil on it, but you actually look at the labelling, it will have an EU mark on it, and that means it's blended with Greek olives to give it more robust
Well,
flavour.
who knew?
Well, I didn't, and now you know.
Yeah.
There's so many more facts I could tell you because because I might be an introvert, but I do like information as well, and I did want to know a lot about what was going on and how these what appear to be like quite countrified areas. What do they do? Where do they get their food from? And if you know where to go and what to pick, there's fields of growing potatoes, and Nikos is like, you can help yourself. I was like, what? Don't do that. You're actually doing that here. The other thing we tasted, fresh almonds off the tree. Just brilliant. Tastes nothing like the dried stuff we get here.
I
Carob.
can imagine.
Oh, they're so soft, lovely. Very, very gentle flavour. Carob. Carob pods, there's trees. Carob and olives grow really well together. They have this symbiotic relationship. That was just yummy. Again, broke one of those in half and just sucked on it walking around like a kid. I just love the really mild, gentle, chocolatey flavour of the carob. And apparently, after the Second World War, when there was no chocolate to be had, certainly not on Crete, this is what the kids were given. They sucked on carob sticks. Looks like before it's ripe, it's like bright yellow and looks like a broad bean pod. So really long, it's got big, thick seeds inside it. And it's the sort of pulpiness that's on the inside of the carob that you suck out. The seeds are like rock hard inside once the carob shell has started to go brown and dry out. And I love that they use that. They make what look like breadsticks just using carob. So carob flour breadsticks, and they were my favourite thing in the whole of the bread basket that came along. and I was gifted a great big parcel of them to bring home with me. Because again, I got into conversation about carob trees, and suddenly Sophia, I don't know what her title was, but she was like quite a high position in the team. She just suddenly appeared with all these carob sticks because we'd had this conversation around carob and her dad's carob trees and how much I love these sticks. And I'm going to find a recipe when I get home, and I'm going to buy more carob flour from somewhere, which I know I can get on the internet. And I'm going to look how to make my own. And in the meantime, have this. I was with 30 to 40 of these carob sticks. It's like I'm leaving another book behind to put those in my case. But it was an incredibly pleasant day to spend. Didn't never felt too hot. There was like this gentle air that flowed around the trees. So I never felt like I was gonna like turn into a pomegranate coloured thing on the, walking along. No, it was just a really pleasant day. And as I say, it was on reflection. I think it's because I felt like something to do with my introvert got well and truly fed that day. It was, yeah, the highlight of the holiday, really was highlight of the holiday. Beaches are great, lots of places I went to, but that was something else. Really, really amazing. Yeah. Anything else about being an introvert on holiday?
So one of my weekends away was the weekend, as we're recording this on a Monday. The weekend just gone, so I got back yesterday, went on Friday, with my friends that I've known since like playgroup and nursery, so lifelong friends. So there's 5 of us. We stayed in a cabin, very nicely done cabin. I really appreciated like the attention to detail on things, like how it was all like finished and everything. Because like I've stayed in like the camping pods and things before and shepherd's huts, and they kind of feel a bit makeshift, which is like part of their charm, don't get me wrong. But this was very, very well finished, this cabin that we stayed in. And there was a hot tub and a fire pit and all of this lovely stuff. And yeah, so there was 5 of us and peopling constantly for 2 days non-stop. Like, I need a holiday now.
My doorbell has just rung. It looks like a man looking to ask me questions. So keeping it real, people. If you heard the doorbell go while we're recording, that's fine. I'm not getting up. I don't know who he is or what he wants. So we will carry on with this. So what will you do now you're back to help you move beyond that peopling?
Well,
Already.
I gave so we all come from different like areas of the country. We're staying up in Lancashire between Preston and Lancaster. So got a friend coming down from Aberdeenshire, a friend coming up from like the south coast. There's another friend and I were coming from the same area, so I gave her a lift. And like when I dropped her off yesterday, about 2, 2:30, something like that in the afternoon, I like she's like, "Oh, do you want to come in for a cup of tea?" I was like, "No, I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna head off." Um, and I went straight to the allotment. I was just like, I just need to kind of be with no people for a time. So I went there and like checked the plants in the greenhouse, make sure they had enough water, had a little chat with the plants that I'd put in last week before I went away. Made sure everybody had enough water, picked the strawberries, just kind of like and then when I did finally make it home yesterday, I just kind of sat and just like stared out the window for a while.
Mm.
So now today it's like I know I've got a lot I need to get done like this week. Um, so I'm just gonna find times throughout my days this week where I can just like sit and stare out the window or just sit in the garden or go to the allotment or whatever, just to kind of recharge my batteries a little bit. I mean, it
Mm.
was a fun weekend, don't
Yeah,
get me wrong, and also I need to recharge now.
yeah. No, I totally get that. I have to say, this is one of those holidays, whether it's because we did the Olive Grove towards the end of the holiday, but I actually came back feeling really energized, other than the flight, which
Yeah.
affects my ears. So I end up swooning when I get off a plane. It takes days for that to recover. But on something on the inside was well and truly fed by being in that hush. And hush is the only
Mm.
word I could come up with. It's like the trees were sort of going, hush, as you walk past them, and it's just like, oh yeah, I like that. That's really lovely. Thank you. But I also recognize that there are other things I like to do, and um, one of the things that I could totally get away with in this olive grove was my phone and taking pictures, because it Nikos just sort of knew that somehow that I needed that, and
Yeah.
so he just left me to it, and I let Pete do all the talking. So then it's made me recognize that going places like art galleries, libraries, they've got very noisy, and
Oh,
it's
do you
like,
know they've become child friendly?
well, it's not even that, because every child wants to be noisy. It's that somehow we've given into the extrovert and their
Mm.
need to talk, and big groups of people and all that sort of thing. I remember as a kid when we had old red brick libraries where you were shh, quiet, when that used to happen. My recreation was to go to, I was like 7, 8, I'd take myself off, as you could then. And you'd find me in a corner of a library with a book.
Mm.
That was my recreation. I wasn't a team sport person. I tried, but it wasn't me. Um, and same with art galleries. I can remember one time, so Manchester Royal, where I did my nurse training, opposite is Whitworth Art Gallery. On a Monday morning, just going and finding a place to sit in the art gallery after having worked God knows how many hours with all the people that you have to deal with, and just sitting there. But I
Mm.
didn't understand why I was doing that. I didn't understand what that was about. Just knew I needed to do it. And I used to sort of not tell anyone, because I was sort of like, I didn't want them to say, do you want me to come with you?
No, no.
But until I understanding how introverts work, I just thought I was being rude, and
Mm.
so I don't tell anyone. So kept it a secret. And what did you do this morning? Oh, nothing. No, actually, I've been around with art gallery, marveling at the peace and quiet of it, which you don't tend to find as much now.
Mm.
And the same when you go to somewhere like a National Trust property, you're like cattle being fed through everywhere. And don't get me wrong, everyone has a right to go to these places. I'm
Yeah.
not saying you don't, but please, can I go at night when there's no one else there? And just have it all to myself.
Mm.
The hush of a
Well,
big building. I love it. People say, "Oh no, it's scary." No, it's not. And it's just like, no, no. If there's ghosts or whatever there, they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to do
mm.
anything. Just sit down and be quiet with them. Um,
Yeah, it's like on when we were in Croatia, we went to so on the island there's two lakes. There's what's called Little Lake and then there's what's called Big Lake. So one of them is smaller than the other one. So in the Big Lake, um, there is an island. So there's like an island within an island. And it reminds me of like, St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall, like that sort of
love
thing.
it.
So
Yeah.
you have to get a boat to it. And it was a monastery, the main, like the big building on the island. And it's pretty much just that building. Obviously now it's been made into like a restaurant and a little shop and everything as well. Um, but like talking about like that hush of big buildings, when you went into this monastery, it was like such a hot day outside and it was cool and it was just like just a peaceful undertone.
Yeah.
And it's like, that kind of feeling where even if there's like people talking or like there wasn't here, but like if you can hear like traffic noise, some places just have that peaceful undertone, and it's just like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, they do. And it's just the loveliest sensation. I think a lot of churches and cathedrals have that,
mm,
except to maintain them, they've had to open their doors to tribes of people, haven't they?
yeah,
You know, and it's very hard to, in some instances, to get that hush.
mm,
Very, very difficult. So I almost don't want to tell people about Nico's Olive Grove tours. I just don't, because it's like, oh, what if suddenly coach loads show up? Never have that hush again. And it's like, no, I know him. I don't. But I could WhatsApp him because I've got his WhatsApp number and ask for a private tour. That would be great. And just he could just leave me there and I'd be happy on my own to go and sit
yeah,
in the boulders and just be with those trees. Because there's just nothing except olive trees for miles around. And it's just like, oh, it's heaven on earth. It's beautiful. He said that during COVID, Crete was locked down, so
mm,
nothing coming or going, and they had no COVID on the island during that time. And one of the things that everybody did, because if you're in that area, everybody's got olive trees, and I don't just mean 10 or 20; they've got hundreds of olive trees. So he's got 800, his father 1,000, and his father-in-law 1,000. That's a lot of olive trees, isn't
that
it?
is a lot of olive trees.
Yeah, and it's like this waiter staff was talking to us, and he's got 384. I mean, that's a very specific number of olive trees. And they're hard work. They're hard work. And it's just like they've been handed down from families.
Mm,
Now, these olive trees aren't in any specific order. It's not like you own the land. So people sell off olive trees. And so you'll have 5 here and 20 over. It's like, God, it must be hard work knowing which are yours and which aren't. Crazy. Yeah, so I would ask for a private tour and be left to just wander and
you
sit with the trees.
don't even need the tour, just
Yeah, forget that. No, I don't need the tour. No. Yeah, I just want to go. I mean, I didn't ask if on Crete they have a right to roam. I don't
mm,
know if you can go anywhere you want to. You know, like in Sweden, they have a right to roam. They can go anywhere.
mm,
And it's just like, oh, can anyone just show up and wander through here? There's nobody there to stop you. So I don't know what the etiquette, the code would
mm,
be. But yeah, I was saying about how during COVID, he said the families came down to the olive groves. They kept their distance, they had barbecues, and just had a wonderful time of it. And it's just like, wow, that's nice. That's really nice. Because you found your allotment very helpful, didn't you, during that time?
yeah. And the so the site on which my allotment is on, it's not a council one, it's a privately owned one. I think the farmer who owns the land just kind of gave over this one field to become allotments, and it's a social enterprise. I think that's what I mean. Um, this allotment site. And when I first took the allotment, which must be about 5 years ago now, it was about half full. There was a lot of like vacant plots. Um, and during COVID, it was just, you know, every day, every time I went there, like a new person had taken a plot or a new like couple or whatever. And it was really nice. Like obviously we all kept our distance and everything, but it was really nice just to have, those people around. And like I didn't talk to them all the time, obviously. Um,
Obviously.
but it was like nice to have that kind of like community feel there again. And like and it's a bit sad that since like the lockdowns finished and everything, like it's empty now.
Mm.
So my plot is kind of in the middle of the site. There's one guy that's a couple of plots over, and then there's a couple that are right down one end and a couple that are right down the other end. And then other than that, there's not really anybody there. And if I, while I'm there, if I see somebody that's noteworthy, if I see another plot holder, that is noteworthy because you hardly ever see anybody there, which is sad.
But it's nice for you.
It is nice for me.
You do get that hush and that peace and quiet. Yeah.
But like what you were saying about art galleries and museums and things, like when we were younger, like my mum and dad would take us to Liverpool Museum because my parents are from Liverpool, so we'd go over and see my grandma and we'd go to the museum. And I remember that kind of like that hush and that shh. It was like one of the, like a library where it's like you weren't meant to be running around and like all of that kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed it. Like it was only from you saying about when you used to go to museums and libraries and art galleries. It's like, oh yeah, that's what that was. And then we've been since, and like I've taken my nephews, and it's been made child friendly. And I don't like, obviously, like you say, children are, welcome to be in these places. But like these, such a beautiful old building, and now it's kind of got like these big, brightly colored, like interactive installations and all of this, like to encourage children to want to be there. I mean, like I wanted to be there anyway. Um, and it's a very different. I'm not saying it's like a right or a wrong, but it's very different than what
Yeah,
it used
it
to
is
be.
very different. Yeah, you don't get the same, you don't get the hush in the same way anymore.
No.
It's just not there. I don't know what time of year you could ever go to the bigger known galleries, museums. I mean, you think about the library we have in Chester, it's part of Story House. That's not
Mm,
quiet ever.
no.
It's a great big open space. Where do you find a quiet corner there? Doesn't exist. And I do think that there's like quiet reading rooms have got their place.
Yeah.
They really do. Um, and I don't think designers necessarily understand the importance of it. If half the population veer towards being introverts, then can we have something, please, where we get to be ourselves rather than have to do everything the extrovert way, all open plan, all noisy, constant music blaring, that constant overtone of noise that I think even extroverts, I believe, could do with just no noise at all at
Mm,
times, unless you're extra extrovert. And there are people who are like jumping beans. They are those people um, who talk in their sleep type people. And it's an interesting one, isn't it? And yet, by the same token, I used to love to go to a football match. I mean, how much rowdier could you get than a football match? I used to love that. I went with my dad, and he was also a quiet person. But there was something about being at a football match was very exciting. So I can do crowds and
mm,
noise. Don't do it very often.
yeah. And it's that like knowing that when you do that, like the weekend I've just been away, um, it's like now I need to kind of recover from that, for want of a better word. But saying about like always needing to have noise, like while like during the weekend there was always like music playing, or they had Glastonbury on the big screen um in the evenings. And I think kind of how I kind of set myself up for the day. So in the morning, I'd make a cacao and then I'd just go and sit outside. So I'd be the first one up, kind of like 8 o'clock. Obviously, everybody else was up later than I was and was not getting up that early. So I'd make my drink and just go and sit outside and let them kind of do what they were doing first thing in the morning. And like I'd hear like people getting up and like starting to chat. I'm like, no, I just need to be out here right now. And then it's like, okay, now, right, let's start the day.
Yeah, you got that boost from your cacao,
Yeah,
and you're off. Yeah, cacao's wonderful for that. Maybe we should talk about cacao next time. Maybe
yes.
our next thing.
Sounds like a good plan. I'm
That
actually
would
going to
be
make a
good.
note of that so we remember it.
I know. That would be good. And we'll talk all about why we love it so much. Oh, it's a wonderful product.
It really is.
And it's on my wish list of places to go is to see cacao growing in its native environment.
Mm.
one of those things I'd like to do. It's on my bucket list. I don't know when I'll do that. I didn't realize that visiting olive groves was on my bucket list either, but I'm so glad it was there and I've done it now. And I would do it again because it was beautiful. Oh, the other
Yeah.
thing that Nikos said was available somewhere up near the village of Kritza was off-grid cabins, no electricity.
Ooh.
It's like, ooh, my whole body did a where? Where are they? I'm there. Can we go now? Just leave me. I'll be fine.
I
It was
must,
like, oh, do I just jet off on the last plane out of Manchester to Crete before the tourist season ends and stay in a cabin up in a hillside? Because I mean, they talk about their winter. Oh, it gets very cold here. It's like, so how cold is cold? 10 degrees centigrade. Bloody hell, we've had summers have been that
yep.
warm. Only need a jumper. Flipping heck.
I
And
must admit, when you first told me about the Olive Grove tour, I was like, oh, I'm so jealous. I want to be there doing that.
oh, you'd have loved it. You'd be picking you'd recognize the herbs and the flowers that were growing wild. And I could just imagine you with a bunch of them in your hand. Look what I found. Because I don't have a very good sense of smell. So Nikos would hand me something and he'd go, what do you think this is? And I'd be like, is it rosemary? I think, no, that's not rosemary. I know the look of rosemary. It's just hopeless, absolutely hopeless. Like, where's Sami when I need her?
Well, in Croatia, because I'm always like interested because of the work I was doing with Freya Luna and the plants and herbs and all of that kind of stuff. I'm always interested when I go abroad, like what plants they have. So when we were on Millet and walking around the national park, I was like looking at all the different like plants and stuff. And I think I don't know whether you appreciated it or not, but Rich got a botany lesson as we were walking around. It's like, this is this plant and this does this, this, and this. And it
Yeah.
was really interesting to see like the national park has, I can't remember how many, but like a huge number of naturally growing wild orchids.
Oh, wow.
So it was really interesting to see. I think most of them, we were a bit late for most of them, but there was a few that we saw, and they're so interesting to see because like obviously in when you go to the garden centre, whatever, and you see those very like grand looking orchids that we think of, but these ones are a lot smaller and they have really interesting kind of flower shapes. Um, there was one that we saw and it looked like men, kind of like little people dangling, like lots of them on the flower head. Um, so yeah, he got a botany lesson.
Yeah, I mean, there was flowers I'd never seen before growing. I had to use the old Google camera thing to tell me what they were. Can't tell you now because I my brain didn't keep it in my head. But just naturally, herbs just growing, alongside the trees. So it makes you sort of think, oh, if these herbs are growing with the olives, they've got to somehow marry together. It's got to be the thing that works.
Mm.
I say lots of very colourful flowers, lots of red poppies were growing as well. They were all there. And then it's just great to see lemons growing on trees and
Oh yeah.
pomegranates growing on trees. And it's like, oh my goodness. Ugh, it was amazing. And there was stuff I'd never heard of, and we got given some of it at lunch. You grow a lot of potatoes there, and there's something called Vlitzer, which looked a lot like a big spinach leaf, but when cooked, looked more like a cabbage.
Oh,
So very interesting how its colour changed. It's like, oh, some sort of hybrid that grows on Crete. So fabulous, thank you. I'll have some of that. And the amount of olive oil that they pour into what they make. Crikey, they go through something like 25 litres per person per year. Like, how much olive oil have you bought so far this year, Sami,
um,
for your own personal use?
I know last month I opened a litre bottle and there's not much gone from that.
Incredible, isn't it? Incredible. Between that and Raki, their alcohol. Well, so what keeps them looking so good, I think.
Yeah, olive oil is a wonderful substance, I'm going to say. I was going to say ingredient, but you know, ingredient in many different, like in food and also in skincare and all of
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. It's amazing.
it is a really wonderful natural product. Yeah, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Well, so what I'm going to say now is, so if you're listening to this as an introvert, what do you like to do for a holiday? Or if you're going to take yourself off and recharge your batteries, where do you like to go? Is there somewhere special, like an allotment, or perhaps you have a shed in your garden? Oh, wouldn't I love a shed in my garden just for me? What else? What else we talked about? Art galleries, libraries. Where else is there? Where do you go to recharge? Or have you even considered that you have a favourite place that you like to go to? Because it gives you that sense of finding something that fulfills your inner introvert in a way that nowhere else and nothing else does.
And if you haven't found that place yet, I encourage you to do so
Yes, most
because
definitely.
it's very helpful.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, Sami, but this introvert is done.
I think we're done. Are we done?
Are we done? Do you
I
think we're
think
done?
we're done.
Do you? I think we're done too. Yes. Hmm. Just thinking back to the hush of the olive groves. I think that's how we should end this. Hush.